Hello, my Procreators. This is Kristen, and I just wanted to jump on to do a video tutorial because I'm trying to answer a member question and it was way too much to type, and it was also too much to do just like a quick video and a comment. So I decided to just pop on here and go live and answer the question. So, oh, hi, Kimberly. I'm just answering some member questions real quick. So the one question from, I'm sorry if I butcher your name, Uzair Ahmed, is regarding the selection tool and if it can do, if the Procreate selection tool can do the things that other programs can do. And he specifically was speaking about Clip Studio program, and he shared a link, a YouTube link that I watched the tutorial for that program. And I wanted to let him know and show him how you can do those same exact things in Procreate. So I'm just having a regular canvas and I am just using a plain monoline brush. But what, thank you, Kimberly. Back at you, babe. So what the guy did in the tutorial to show how to use the selection is he just kind of drew like this weird blob, and then he was showing you how you can select different areas of this canvas and color fill them. So let me go and choose a color. So I'm just going to choose this teal, so it's a lot different than the black, so you can see the differences. So the selection menu is this little ribbon right here, and when you tap that you get this bottom menu that comes up. I want to make sure everybody can see that at the bottom of the screen. You have several ways that you can select something on your canvas. Automatic just means that when you tap somewhere on the canvas, it will automatically select that area until it comes to a line on your work or an area. It will select, so if I select like right here, it's going to select everything outside of this line. And if I were to tap here, it's going to select everything inside of the line. So to show you, if I just tap here, it's going to select all of that background. With this, you can continue tapping in more places. You don't just have to tap once to select something. So if I also wanted to select the inside, it's now selected everything except that black line. Now when you want to add color fill to this, all you have to do down here is choose this little paint bucket here, tap that, and it will turn blue. And now my selection has turned the color of my chosen teal color up here. You can turn that off and just have this selected. Another way is if you go to your, after you've selected it, if you go to your layers panel, add a new layer, tap it and choose fill layer. This was the old way. You used to have to fill things before Procreate added that color fill bucket. So now that that color fill bucket is there, that's no longer needed. The other way obviously is if you're not in the selection menu, if you just drag and drop your color, actually, let me make sure I'm on that layer. If you drag and drop your color, that's the way most people think to do it, but you can actually use it via the selection menu. So again, the automatic is if you're just tapping the areas that you want to select. And if you select an area you don't want, there is no undo button over here like there is on the main screen. So you would have to use your 2-finger tap to undo your selections and 3-finger tap to redo. The other one is the freehand. So this is where you can draw an area that you want. So if I wanted to select the inside of this shape, I can just draw what I want to select And I use this in my calligraphy a lot. If I just want to nudge a word over or fix the kerning, I just select what I want and then I can move it from there. So I have this selected. I don't know if you can see on my screen, but it will give you these diagonal lines to show you your area that's not selected, and it's all white in here. If you want to adjust that, you can go to your wrench and preferences and go under selection mask visibility, and if you turn that up, it will become darker and show you exactly what's in your selection there. Okay, so back to our selection tool, we have our freehand. Now if I wanted to color fill that, I can just make sure you're on the color that you want, and down here just tap that color fill bucket and it will automatically fill that selection for you. And like we did with the automatic, you can continue filling in more areas while you're in this menu. So if I draw another selection, it's going to fill that also. Now I intentionally didn't go all the way on this line because I wanted to show you what's happening. So you might think this isn't working because I started a line. Let me start over. I started and I came back up to there, and it looks like I reconnected that line to that starting circle, but I didn't. If you see, there's still a gap there. So you really have to go all the way to that circle for it to connect. And the way I do that is I normally just tap the circle, and then that will be fully connected and will fill for you. So a lot of people in the beginning, they think they're closing up that shape and they're like, why isn't it filling with that color? It's because it's actually not closed all the way up. And if you zoom in all the way, you can see there's still that little bit right there. So I always tap that circle to make sure that it's fully closed all the way. Now, let me two-finger tap to undo those. And let me just go back into this. Let's say that I want to color fill that, but it's not, let's say I want it to reach the edges of the line. If you want to move that out a little bit more, and in the program that he was referencing, I believe they called it a color margin or something different. And again, in other programs, they may call it something different. And in Procreate, it might not be called that. Like in Procreate, it's called feathering, but it's the same idea. It's the same thing. It doesn't mean that Procreate can't do it. It's just like a little, not hidden, but a different way to get there, I guess. So if you hit feather, we can then feather this out by turning up the amount, and it's going to reach out to those sides there, but it blurs it in the process. So let me tap off of there. You can see now if I zoom in, it's filling it out a little bit more, but it's blurred. So one way that you can darken your blurs is to duplicate your item or your layer a bunch of times, and each time it's going to get darker and darker and darker. That is one way to do it, but let me just delete all those. Another way is using the selection. So let's go back to our selection arrow, and I want to select this color area. So I want to go to automatic, and I want to tap in the middle of it, and now because I have color fill on, it has selected all of that blurred area that went beyond the black line. So you can, just like with the color fill threshold, like when you drag and drop color and you have to, hi Katie, thank you, yes, this will be available later. When you drag and drop your color, you might have to adjust the threshold. There's also a selection threshold. So let me tap to undo that. And now when I tap to select it, I'm going to not lift my pen up right away, but I'm going to drag it to the left to reduce the threshold. So I'm going to drag it, and you see how it's going down? And it's selecting less of what that shape was, if that makes sense. Okay, now if I wanted to continue coloring in these lines, and you see it also selected the line itself. So actually, let me go even less until it's only selecting a bit of what's inside and not the line itself. I don't want the line selected. So if you wanted to continue selecting the white area, you can just go to automatic and tap that inside of that area. Okay, so let's undo all of that and go back to our original image. The other thing that he showed in his tutorial was selecting the line itself. So again, go to your selection tool, and with automatic, and I like to zoom in if it's a line, and I'm just going to tap in the middle of that, and you can see that because I had color fill on, that filled it with my selected color. But if I zoom in really far, you can see these pixels have a little bit of gray in them because that's showing a little bit of the black. So let's undo that, and I'm going to select again, but this time I'm going to change the threshold. I'm going to turn it all the way down. So my threshold is now at 0. So when I select it, you see it didn't select the full line because there's still some black on the edges. So again, adjusting the threshold, I'm going to turn it all the way up. Let me start over on this side so I have more room to move to the right. And if you want to select all of it, I usually go all the way up until it turns the whole thing, and then I back up a little bit. So that's selecting everything, and then I go back just a little bit, and now that whole line is selected. So that's how you can adjust the selection threshold. Keeping in mind that you might have to adjust this with every new selection that you make. So if I go to freehand and I make like a new selection, then I might have to adjust this one as well later down the road. So it's something you might play with back and forth as you're creating. Okay, the other thing that he showed in the tutorial was, let's say, I'm just going to erase a section here. So if that line is open and you want to color fill this, just like with color drop, if that line's open, it's going to flood out and color the whole thing. The same thing with the selection. So if I go to automatic and I have my color fill on and I tap, it's knowing like this is kind of like an open gate to get out and flood the rest of the image. However, if I add, let me go back to black. It doesn't have to be black. It can be any color line. If I add like a, whoops, I'm still on selection. Let me go to my pen tool. And if I add a little bit and I still have just a tiny bit there, it might register that as closed. So now let's try. Let me go back to a different color. And I'm going to turn my selection down. So that's still too much closed. Let me try to close it up a little bit more, but not all the way. And this is what he was doing in the video. Whoops, selection, there. So now even though it had an opening there, it registered that as being closed. And again, I believe that was called something different in the different software or app that he used. But again, in Procreate, you can do the same thing. It's just a different way of doing it and getting there. And now again, you can see there's this white line, and this, I see this question quite a bit in the group. There's this white line where it doesn't fill all of the way. So again, that's just where you're going to adjust your threshold. So again, I'm just going to tap and move my pen to the right until it selects too much, and then I'm going to back it up a little bit. And there's still a little tiny bit there that it's not picking up, and that's where you can go in and add your feather. So if you tap feather, and let me zoom in so you can see better. If I go to feather and then increase that feathering, okay, and then I go back and select it, It's not working now. Go back and select it. Then and turn the threshold up. Then we can get rid of that white line there. So if anybody has any questions on that, please just drop them in the comments, and I will definitely get back to you after the video, after the live is over. And if it's something too hard to explain in written form, I can always just do a quickie vid in the comments for you. Okay, moving on to shapes. He was also doing shapes. So the two shapes that you can do in Procreate is with the selection tool is the rectangle and the ellipse. So let's go to rectangle. And with rectangle, when you put your pen down, it's going to start in a corner, and as you move your pencil, it's going to draw that rectangle for you. So I put my pen down and I'm just dragging it. And I mean, it doesn't have to be a rectangle, it could be a square. And it automatically is going to fill that color because I have this color fill on. But if I go and I change it to a different color, it is going to change those colors for me. Okay, let's go back and do an ellipse. Same thing, you just put your pen down and start to drag it in the direction that you want your shape to be. And if I want to change this, say to yellow, you can do that. And then I believe there was a triangle also, and because there's not a triangle in here, this is where I would go in and use my freehand and just as best as I could draw a triangle. And let's make this a different color even still. So I believe that he had a green in his video. Now, one of the things that that software did was he could go in and select a color based on, he could make a color change with like one click for like the orange, and it would change all of the oranges. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But the way you can do that in Procreate is, let's say, well, we have all of our colors on one layer, but let's say that these were on separate layers. That was going to make it really easy for you to color change things. That's why we advocate having layers so much, especially with beginners, because when you're making changes to your work, having it in its own layer is going to make it so much easier to change those. So what I'm going to do right now is use the selection tool to put these on their own layer. So I'm going to turn off color fill because I just want to select it, I don't want to fill it. So I'm going to, again, I'm on freehand, and I'm going to draw around the shapes that I want to put on their own layers. So I'm going to put the orange ones on their own layers. So I have both of those selected, and I'm going to, you could go down here to copy and paste, and it's going to copy this and paste it into a new layer. However, it's still going to leave it on its own layer. So I don't want to do that. I want to actually cut it and paste it. So I'm going to do a 3-finger swipe down on this screen and do cut and paste. Okay, now if we go into our layers, we can look and see that these two are on their own layer, and the yellow and green are still on their own layer too. So I want to also separate the yellow and the green. So I'm going to go back to my selection, and I want to select the yellow. Same thing, 3-finger swipe down, cut and paste. And now the yellow is in its own layer, and the green is also left in its own layer. So now each one is in its own layer. Now, if you wanted to recolor all of your oranges, there's a couple ways, and that's what I absolutely love about Procreate. There are so many ways to do something in Procreate, and it's just finding what works best for you, what you're going to remember in your workflow kind of thing. You don't need to know all the ways to do something, you just need to know how you get there. But I'm going to show you a couple ways of how you could do it. So if you wanted to recolor these orange ones, one way is to alpha lock it So you can do that by tapping it and choosing Alpha Lock, or the gesture, the quick gesture is to do a 2-finger swipe on the layer like that. So that undid it, and now it's going to turn the Alpha Lock back on again. And you'll know it's an Alpha Lock because it will have this checkerboard in the viewing panel. So now if I want to change this color to green, all I have to do is tap it and choose fill layer, and it will automatically fill just what's selected on that layer to whatever color I have selected here, including that black outline. So let me just show you. If I tap it and choose fill layer, you see how it filled that whole, all the pixels that were on that layer, it filled that with. So let me undo that. If you just want to fill the orange without the black, then you would actually have to go in and recolor over what you created, or use the selection tool like I showed you previously. Okay. Another way without using the Alpha Lock is if you want to use the fill tool again. So in your selection menu, you want to make sure your color fill is turned on. Okay, then go back to your layer, and all you have to do is select this layer from the menu. So like right now we're on this layer because it's blue, so it's selected, but if you tap it and again choose select, then because this color fill is on, it's automatically going to turn those to the color that you have selected. Okay, and oh, what happened there? Okay. Another way is, again, going to your selection and choosing, let's say I want to turn the yellow to this orange. So I'm just going to color pick orange by tapping and holding my finger on the orange, and it's going to change up here to orange. Go to my selection, and I can go to automatic and just tap that, make sure your color fills on, and tap that, and it's going to change there. Now if I go over here to tap this, because this is on a different layer, it's not going to work. It's going to select the whole background. So you have to make sure that you're on the correct layer when you're using the selection tool, unless you have a reference layer, and that is a whole other that is a whole other tutorial. So that is how you would change those colors with the selection tool. There's other ways to change colors, like I showed you, like with the drag and drop, and then you can go up here and tap and move things around. But again, because they're on separate layers, you would have to do that on each and every layer. So when selecting things, and this, I just want to touch on this, this doesn't have to do with the video. This has to do with just a question that I see so much in this group, and that is when people have text, like say you have the letter C. Let me just draw a bit of a C right here, and they want to fill the C with a clipping mask. So let's just say, let me make a new layer with that colored. Why aren't you dragging the color thing to fill? Hi James, because in the beginning, if you're just now coming on, you probably missed in the beginning of the video where I said I'm specifically answering a member question about how to use the selection tool, like another program uses it, and the program was Clip Studio. So he wanted to know about the selection tool, and specifically the Magic Select tool. So I'm showing him how he can do the same thing in Procreate with the selection tool and color via the selection tool and not the color drop. So I hope that helps to answer your question. Okay, So what people do is they want to clip this to the layer below it, and they don't understand when it's not filling in the C. And that's because there's nothing inside that C. It's blank right now. So let's, what you want to do in that case is you can duplicate that C and fill this one in. So you want to fill that in, and like I did, I just did the drag and drop. But if you want to use the selection tool, again, you're going to go there, go to automatic, make sure your color fill is on, and then just tap like that, and that's going to fill that C. And then you can, if you still want the line to show, you can move that layer above the clipping mask, and then the line will still show with the clipping mask inside it. So hopefully that helps some of the people who are creating those alphabet letters and styles that have like the leopard and the glitter and all of that in there for like the t-shirts and tumblers and all of that. You're welcome, James. So, okay, again, I just wanted to come on and show that that was available in Procreate and how to get there and how to do all of that. If you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I will come back and answer. Again, I just wanted to pop on really quickly and do this live because it was so much easier than trying to write this and explain it in a text. It was so much easier to demonstrate it. So thank you guys. Happy procreating.